Good morning, everybody. Here's I am. Here's I is, Robert Phoenix. How the hell are y'all? Hey, what's happening? It is November 14th, 2017. What's going on? Hey, sorry I'm a bit late today. I was dealing with my mother this morning. I love my mother, don't get me wrong. Great woman, but I think maybe there should be a cutoff date with seniors and technology. Kind of like driving. She can't get back on her Gmail account. And nobody can help her. And of course, good old Google has no tech support with the phone. So you got a senior who has her life completely connected to her Gmail account, her banking, everything, and she can't get in there. She's freaking out. And I wish I was there to help her, but I can't. I can't do it. And I was trying to help her with FaceTime and looking at her computer, and she's holding up the phone and it's all angled, and boy, I had to leave. I had to go. She's gonna have to figure it out on her own. But if I was there, I could probably do something. Wouldn't it be great to have that kind of elite technology where we just teleport? Wouldn't that be awesome? Awesome. Just step into a molecular atomizer and be reassembled. The only problem is that they probably figure out how to hack that, just like they figured out how to hack all these defense secrets that got drained out a couple days ago. Did you see that? Huge amounts of defense secrets. Massive hack. One of the biggest hacks in history. Let me see if I can find this. Hold on.
So, Gary.
Hey.
We're looking for someone who's a quick thinker.
Don't you just hate that? You go to a website and they just start plowing you with ads now. And they'll throw like 3 or 4 screens up. Right? It's almost like you're playing whack-a-mole on your monitor, trying to hit the little X to get the. And I've got ad blocker, and this stuff still pops up, and so it's like embedded or something inside of the websites now. So and you're playing whack-a-mole, trying to like shut these screens down so you can actually read something. And then what they do is they will fake that little X. They'll fake the little X, so you hit the little X, but the little X really isn't what you're supposed to hit. Or if you're just a tiny hair off that little X, then it goes from, say, the sidebar right into the center of the screen. And now you're chasing it. Let me get it now. It's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. Oh boy, technology, love it. So I've had my own issues with technology. Like mother, like son. So I have an old laptop from 2009, and it's a beast. It's an Apple. So I have this laptop, and I have all the things that all the people with the new laptops have. I have the same things, I have the same functionality. I'm running a fairly modern version of the browser, about as modern as I can get. I can run all my little FaceTimes and my calendar and all those neat little Apple things. Well, now when I go into my computer, it is asking me to sign in with my iCloud address. Okay, not a problem. I can do that. I know my password for this iCloud. I do. But here's the but. They changed. They changed the sign-in process, you see, which I didn't know. Because now, because my computer is an older computer, they have this double check-in, right? It's sort of like the double secret probation from Animal House. So you've got the double check-in now, which is your email address and your phone code. They send you a phone code. Well, because my computer is older, I don't have the same field showing up. Okay? So here I am, I'm fumbling around trying to figure out, I keep entering my password, it's not accepting my password. Why? Well, I had to call Apple, and guess what? I have to enter the code from my phone behind my password because my computer is older and it does not have the second field to enter the phone code in. I do that, and I get on. But what's going to happen here is they're going to make this stuff harder and harder to do. They're going to make you walk through more and more steps in order to get onto your computer and do all the things that we have now been accustomed to do, trained like monkeys to do. Until, guess what? Until it just gets so difficult, I'm doing this, until it gets so difficult, they'll say, well, all you need to do is get a newer computer. Just get one of our new laptops. The ones that you can't expand and put more memory in? Yeah, the ones that you can't work on. Get one of those. Because it'll be a lot easier for a while. And then what will happen? Oh, well, this laptop has a feature that other laptops, particularly your older laptop, just doesn't have. It has facial recognition. And all you have to do is click a photo of who you are through Photo Booth. Apple will store your photo, and every time you come onto your computer, all you have to do is look into that little red light and smile. Isn't that easy? See, we're being herded. We're being herded. This is exactly what's happening. We're just being herded into convenience by making everything else so goddamn inconvenient. Okay? Being herded into convenience. This is too much. My poor mother, right? She's scrambling around, just trying to figure out how to recover her password from Gmail. If somebody came along and said, Mrs. Morris, all you need to do is just take your photo and Gmail will store it and you'll never have to remember your password again. Do you think she'd do it? Absolutely she would. Absolutely. Because she doesn't know better. It's easy. It's easy. It's convenient. Remember this. Convenience is the Antichrist. Convenience is the Antichrist. The slippery slope. The slippery slope of technology. We can't get rid of it. It's in our lives. It's embedded. But the fight goes on. I still think that there's... I was on a show recently, and it was a great little show called the Blockchain Podcast. And I'm going to put that up on my website so people can go listen to it. I'll do that today. I've got so much. I've been working on I was working on my email list last night till like 3 in the morning. See, that's how dedicated. I've just decided I'm going to be dedicated now because I had this epiphany. And the epiphany was I just turned 57 years old. Okay, 57. That's no bullshit, right? I'm staring 3 years down from 60. So how long am I going to be productive? I mean, I got good genes. I got Saturn and Capricorn. I can do this for a while, right? Not a problem. I could be that sage old man doing the astrological readings. I can grow a long beard. I can look like Rick Levine. I see you're
A Scorpio rising. This is mysterious. You know, you're a very intense person. But there's more to you than the dark side that you show humanity. There is the power to redeem and transform the world around you. Did you know that?
I could go that route, right? I could probably do that into my 80s. Get a little wizard cap. I may have to. I may have to do that. I should go down to Goodwill. I think they probably have some like leftovers from Halloween, or people bringing back their costumes, or sticking them in there because they're done. I got to get a good robe and a good wizard's hat. I used to run into this guy, Louis Turry. I haven't talked about him for a while. Louis was actually he's been on George Norrie like I don't know how many times. George, Louis Turry, I'm Nostradamus. I am the reincarnation of Nostradamus. Yes. You go to his website, and he's all dressed up like Nostradamus. And I got one of my first astrological readings from Louis, and that was actually pretty good. Like he had a pretty good gig going at that time, right? He'd figured some things out, and I'll tell you how he'd figured some things out so fast. So this is computers are around, but he had figured out how to do a reading by putting your true node on the ascendant. So the dragon's head goes on the ascendant, and then he would look up in the ephemeris the day you were born, and he had pieces of paper, copies of blank astrological wheels, and he'd just draw everything in, and he'd look at where certain places, certain aspects were in the chart. And he didn't really get into like oppositions, squares. He didn't go that deep with it. He would just look at the signs and the house positions. And it was actually a really smart way to be able to work through a bunch of people. All you needed was an ephemeris, figure out where their true node was, put it on the ascendant, and then the rest of the chart would unfold accordingly. It was actually brilliant, right? You just have a stack of these copies of the wheel. And then he had a very beautiful wife at that time helping him. So they'd go into these shows, like the Whole Life Expo. They charge like $45, $50 for a half-hour reading, which back then was, this is the 90s. It was pretty good change in the early 90s, like 93, 94, something like that, 95. I think it was around 97. That's when I met him, 97. So it was that was interesting. I think 94. Yeah, I hadn't quite started to do tarot readings yet in a big way. I was still sharpening my skills. But anyway, he gave me actually a pretty good reading based on that model and some stuff that really stayed with me and made a lot of sense. And what's interesting is that when I moved to Texas and my chart got relocated, it basically became that chart because my true node is in the first house here in Texas. So now I'm living my Nostradamus chart. Nostradamus. Yeah, so but you go to his website, he became kind of a caricature, He became a caricature. This is what happens, I think, in astrology. People tend to, take on some sort of caricature-like personae. And you go to his website now, and he's like fully engaged in being the reincarnation of Nostradamus. He dresses up like Nostradamus. So I guess I can't claim that one. I can't claim, well, I am the reincarnation of Nostradamus. Maybe we're going to have a Nostradamus off. I could do that with Louis. I could maybe do that. I don't know. I think he can have that. He can have that territory. Yeah. Anyway, I was up till almost 3 o'clock in the morning last night working on my email list. Yes, my email list, which means you're going to start getting emails from me. How about that? But they'll be good emails. Trust me. They'll be good emails. But I had this moment, right? I'm like, I got to start figuring this stuff out. Like, I'm on the clock as he taps his wrist. I got things to do, right? I got stuff to do. So that's why I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning last night working on my email list. I got to kick it into another gear. I got to kick it. This is, there's no guarantee that we will be on this mortal coil for any period of time. So we got to burn. Got to be incandescent and burn. I hope my mom figures out her snafu with Google. I told her, worst case scenario, take your iPad, get your friend. She lives in the Bay Area, although she does not live anywhere close to Mountain View. She lives on the other side of the bay. Take your friend, go have a lunch date in Mountain View, and then go walk into Google with your iPad and just plead for help. And they probably will help her. One would hope. So, speaking of help, as he segues into the next segment, people send me a lot of material. I get sent emails all the time. I get sent texts, not texts, but emails, Facebook texts with links to either other people that are doing things or interesting stories. And I love it, right? I love it. People send me the stuff. They're like cub reporters in some ways, feeding me leads, right? Here, check this out. Check this out. What do you think? What do you think? And I would say I look at it about 90%, 90 to 95% out of all of it. Every now and then a few slip through the cracks for whatever reason. Maybe on the surface I'm not interested, I'm not ready to respond, or just gets past my field of attention. But I do my best to respond to everybody. So yesterday I got, and this is not the first time, people have been sending me, of course this links up with that Q clearance material, that the indictments are coming. The indictments are coming. And, this is kind of a white hat deal. There's Benjamin Fulford's fingerprints all over this. And I'm not, he came onto the scene, was it back in around 2010, 2011, I think. And he was super interesting and weird, right? He had all these stories, and it was like, wow, who is this guy? He's it was kind of like this insider, whistleblower persona dude who was living in Asia, and he was connected to these triads and the white dragon or the white claw or whatever they were, right? White tiger. And it's like kind of interesting. And then you watched him, and he started to team up with David Wilcock. And this is what David Wilcock does. He'll find somebody, and he'll tag team with them, and he'll kind of piggyback on their material. So it was the David Wilcock and Ben Fulford show, and now it's the David Wilcock and Corey Good show. So they were tagging, but the stuff that was coming out of his mouth started to get crazier and crazier and crazier. And then he had a breakdown, and he kept claiming that his life was in peril, life's in jeopardy. And then I haven't seen any video of him lately. I don't know, maybe it exists. But now he's claiming, amongst other people, that these indictments are coming. Does he even exist anymore? I don't know. I mean, it's really interesting. Like they put these people in places like China or Russia, as in Edward Snowden, or theoretically in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. So they put these people in these places that are inaccessible. So it's really difficult to actually validate if they're there or not. And I think Snowden is probably in Russia, although I don't think anything is concrete or certain. He could be living in an underground bunker somewhere. It could all be just a big game, right? Just a big game and a big ruse and another extension of this fake reality that we're in. And I don't know. You don't know either. You may say, oh, yeah, no, you don't know. You just don't know. But we have these people in these places that are theoretically embedded out of sight, out of mind, so it's hard to vet if they're actually there or not. Correct? So can we even trust these sources? I believe firmly, I don't think Julian Assange is around anymore. I think he was taken out of there. I think he was extradited. I think the nature of the information, the tweets, the emails, whatever's coming out does not sound like Assange at all. It's way too pointed. It's way too directed against certain people. I think that WikiLeaks was always a limited hang. and Assange may have been part of it, willingly part of it, or or consciously part of it, or unconsciously part of it. But I don't think he's there anymore. That interview that Sean Hannity did with him, Assange was totally green screened in. He wasn't in the same space with him. You just look at that video and it just screams green screen. So I don't know if Assange I don't think he's around. I think he's been removed from the premises. You don't see him come out, and he used to come out. There's no proof of life with Assange. He doesn't come out on the deck or the veranda or the patio anymore. You know, there's really no proof of life with Assange. I'm not sure he exists in the way that that he theoretically once did exist. I'm getting a little off the beaten track, but what I'm trying to establish here is that we're getting information at times from sources that are dubious and or at the very least need deeper vetting in some ways. Much deeper vetting, like this Q clearance. Very interesting stuff. But just popping up on 4chan, who knows who this person is? You know, and who knows what they're saying is actually valid and true. Because the indictments were supposed to go out last week, and they haven't. Well, why is that? Why is that? So I'm in a questioning mode here. You see that? Questioning these things. And it's important to question these things. You know who else doesn't exist anymore? Is Wayne Madsen. I was talking with a friend last night, and Wayne Madsen used to be all over the place. You'd see him on video, he'd be on radio shows. He's not on video or radio shows anymore. You don't see Wayne Madsen. If you go to his Twitter feed, it is completely vile. It's like somebody hijacked Wayne Madsen's Twitter. Somebody might have hijacked Wayne Madsen. I don't think he's around anymore. I think that guy's been removed. It happens. It totally happens. It's just another aside. And this is a very intense, very thorough investigative reporter. And Alex Jones used to have him on a lot, and he's never on Alex Jones anymore. He's just not around. It's easy for anybody to write a blog post or a piece. It's easy. Anybody can do it. Even machines can do it now. Isn't that frightening? They've got machines that can take my voice, grab my voice, and replicate my voice and have me say anything. And I'd have to hire the best voice print technology lawyer team on the planet in order to clear my name, or anybody else would have to do it. It's the same thing. And they could actually reproduce your facial features. And they could animate it. They could actually create a video of me or anybody else saying something that could be completely libelous. I mean, that technology is there. It exists. We are in a place now. Wow, man, slippery slope. Slope meet the slippery. And I'm not here to sound any paranoid alarms, but I'm just telling you what's out there. Oh, but if you're a good person and you don't do anything to upset the system, nothing will happen to you. You see? Keep your hands off other people, especially women. Make sure you say nice politically correct things and use the proper pronouns, and you'll just be fine. You'll be just fine. I saw this debate with Jordan Peterson and this guy who is they're Canadians. And Peterson he's an academic, and he says, look, I think the pronoun thing is ridiculous. Like je, we're, them, whatever new language we're trying to create to accommodate the 1/8% of the population that actually has to go through the turmoil of being identityless. It's kind of a weird thing, though, isn't it? It's like they're identityless, so they have to create a new identity. Don't you already have an identity? Oh, you did, but you don't now. So now you've got to create a new identity based on the identity that you once had, because that identity wasn't good enough. Anyway, he got into this debate with this guy. Said, "Look, I don't want people legislating my speech. I pay taxes, but not for this. This infringes upon my ability to speak freely." And I watched this video, and I realized we're really in a war. You know, all this stuff with North Korea and Syria and Iran and Yemen, which are all, especially the Iran-Yemen piece, they're pretty real. But we are in a war now. It is clearly a war on ideas, a war on speech, a war on syntax. There's a war going on. And there's a massive assault on our ability to communicate in a way that we've been communicating for the last 2,000 years. And it's being driven, 2,000 years or more, and it's being driven by a fractal of the percentage. And that we have to be sensitive to the fractal of the percentage of the population. Is that a democracy? I don't think it's a democracy at all. Because if it was a democracy, that fractal of percentage would have to go along with the rest of us who are probably having, not much of a problem with the current form of syntax. And really identifying male, female, 0101, 0101, right? XXXY chromosome. It's not a big deal. There it is. It is. I'm telling you right now. We go down that rabbit hole. It's not even a rabbit hole. That's not even a rabbit hole. That's a rat hole. See, a rabbit hole, you get down in there and you get to a rat hole. What do you find? It's not that deep. Trust me, rat holes aren't that deep. Rabbit holes are pretty deep. You get to cruise around and eventually get to the bottom. It's a rat hole. We go to that rat hole, we're in trouble. We are in trouble because it is going to dislocate our sense of who we are in space and time. It will suspend our identity. That's right. It will suspend our identity. And it will cause a fracture and a schism at a social level that most people are not going to be able to deal with. It's not just trying to reach around and find the right frickin' pronoun to address somebody by. No, it's not that. It's the process that people are going to have to go through in order. That's going to be the breaking point. That is going to be the breaking point. We're oh boy. So what about the indictments? Are they going to happen? Are we finally going to have Christmas? A Christmas. Well, not if Jeff Sessions is the Attorney General. Jeff Sessions has now recused himself again from Uranium One and Russiagate. Well, he recused himself from Russiagate, and now he's recused himself from... What is this guy? What is he hiding? Now, the Podestas, the Podestas are shutting down. They're shutting down. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they've both left the country. That's the rumor. I was listening to NPR last night, and they said that they had a spokesperson on for the Podestas and the Podesta group. And she said that by the end of the year, the Podesta group will be no more. It'll be defunct. And the reason why it will be defunct, because they will run out of money at that point in time. So the Podesta group, which was a very influential group that included the lobbying efforts on the Tony Podesta side and the lobbying and administrative efforts with John Podesta on the Hillary Clinton in the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC side, these are two major players. There are two really major players in Washington, D.C. And they are shutting it down. They're shutting it down. Because apparently, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I've got a really sharp audience, that Tony Podesta has been indicted. That's what I've heard, right? Tony Podesta has been indicted. And if that's the case, then there are potentially more of these indictments. I'm not saying that they won't come. I'm not saying that the indictments won't happen. Or they can't. But I'll believe it when I see it. Because they were supposed to go out, what, a week ago? And what happens is that the longer, this process drags on, the more time the people who are going to be indicted have in order to prepare their escape pod or do whatever it is they need to do, like go to Europe or go to, I don't know, Costa Rica or whatever, wherever they go, to get out of the long arm of the law, right? Just like Roman Polanski did back in the 1970s. So I'm not saying that they won't come or they can't come, but it's like, really, when's this going to happen? And how much lead time are you going to give these people? We got a Mercury retrograde coming up. I think it's on the 3rd of December. And that's at 29 degrees Sagittarius. And on my interview with Regina Meredith, which I'm still waiting to have aired, I talked about this. And I talked about that 29th degree where Mercury is going retrograde. And it's like the last chance for truth, the last stop for truth. And it's going backwards for the whole month. And that'll be an interesting time. That'll be a very interesting time because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to have a Mercury-Saturn conjunction right around that time. And that's big. That's big. So I would say, from a timing perspective, it could happen if this is going to happen. If this is going to happen. It could happen between now and December 3rd. But December 3rd, mark that date on your calendar, because that's when Mercury goes retrograde at the 29th degree of Sagittarius. And we go backwards in time. Right? We go backwards to try to reclaim something. And that 29th degree, the anaretic degree, says, oh, wait a minute, we can't go to Capricorn yet. We got to deal with this Sagittarian stuff. One last swipe at the truth. That'll be a very interesting time. And happening during the Christmas holidays, too. Another Mercury retrograde right around the holidays. Last year, it was just after Christmas. And starting, I think, right at the first of the year. And it was in Capricorn, if I'm not mistaken. So we got that Mercury retrograde coming up. We have a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, which is expansion through relationships. That's happening right now. And expanding and going deep. And also having the potential to experience forgiveness and compassion and healing. This could be a really healing day for people in terms of the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. Don't squander it. In fact, if you this would be the perfect day to have a midday tryst with somebody with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. Perfect day. Perfect day. If you're listening to me and you're in a relationship, who knows? Maybe you don't have to be in a relationship. If you're in a relationship, this would be a great day to meet each other, right? Hey, let's meet each other at home for lunch for an hour, right? Or something along those lines. Be a perfect day for that. Perfect day. Factor that into your daily schedule, maybe before you work out. Afternoon delight. Remember that song? Sky, rockets and flying. I actually met the woman who produced that record. Lovely lady, Suzanne Ciani. Lovely person. Had one of the greatest new age records or selling records of all time, The Velocity of Love. She's a brilliant woman, absolutely brilliant. So, are the indictments going to come? We'll see. You know, here's the deal. You got to live your life like they're not coming. You know, just live your life as if you are expanding, you're actualizing, you're taking steps to make every single day better, whether it's through your diet, whether it's through your habituation. If that stuff's going to happen, it's going to happen. And if it's not going to happen, then guess what? You cannot allow yourself to be crushed by another seeming miscarriage of justice. You can't do it. Just think of it. So you're eating ice cream, and the indictments are the whipped cream and the cherry on top. The ice cream's still there. Although maybe you want to eat avocado ice cream like Tom Brady, so it doesn't make you fat. It's hard to find avocado ice cream. And by the way, these ice cream, these milk substitutes, ice creams, most of them are horrible. They're horrible. There's only one. I have found this one ice cream that is not a cow milk. It's a goat cheese and cherry ice cream. It's fantastic. I'm moving I don't do a lot of dairy. I just do butter. I do that grass-fed butter. But the dairy that I am, like my yogurts, I don't do traditional yogurt. I'm going to goat. I'm going to the goat. I'm eating Baphomet. I'm consuming Baphomet. Yes, because I have my webinar on Saturn and Capricorn. It's coming up. Da-da-da-da. As he looks at the calendar, let's look at December, and I believe it's the 9th of December, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Saturday. It's not too far, not too long off from now. Not too long. Not too long off. No, not too long from now. Not too far away. It is the 9th of December, and that's on astrolotta.com, and I'll be putting that link up on my website. It's a webinar on Saturn and Capricorn. Get hip to it. I was having a dialogue with somebody who had seen the interview that Heather Elin did with me. She did 2 interviews with this webinar. And he sent me an email, and he said, "Oh man, when I heard this, all I could think about was blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. I was screaming blockchain." And he sent me this email after I did the interview with breaking down the chart for Bitcoin. So I sent him the link and said, "Yeah, here, this is where I break down." But one of the things that I said, because people think that Bitcoin and the blockchain is going to be the panacea, and it's going to help liberate us from the clutches of the Federal Reserve and banking transactions and all that stuff, right? That this is going to be, that the blockchain is the free energy of the economy. And I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I think that there are interesting points and interesting pieces around the blockchain, or blockchains, because there's more than one now. There's quite a few. And I kind of like the fact that, that it's kind of this island or this archipelago of these various blockchains, which could be in competition with one another. So I kind of like that, and I think that there's some promise there. But I'm not willing to hitch my wagon to it and say, well, this is going to be the thing that brings the power back to the people. I think it has the potential. I also think it has the potential to be flipped. And it could be one of those things where the blockchain becomes the Saturn cube and you're in hell and you can't get out of it. So, just because that's who I am, I tend to be a wait-and-see person a little bit. Sometimes I throw myself out there and into something, and it's always an interesting process in and of itself. But one of the things that he asked me about is what did I think of it? And I think the missing piece, to be honest with you, with the whole blockchain experience is, let's say, for instance, you have all these blockchain assets let's say you're Bitcoin rich. What are you going to do with that money? What are you going to do with those Bitcoins? How can you take those Bitcoins and create something new out of them? What do I mean by that? How can you create a business model or business opportunity using that money? Because that's where the whole thing has to go. It is one equation to be able to amass some form of wealth, which I am all for. In fact, I should have been more for amassing wealth a long time ago. I had to get rid of this, like St. Francis, Sananda Manuel poverty trip, which is not bad. I mean, it's good for humility, but I've got Saturn and Capricorn. I got the wrong program. When I was a kid, I had a paper route and I loved it. I didn't like getting up, but I loved going out and getting the starts because I was good at that. And I made a lot of little coin on the side, being a little salesman, getting people to sign up for the San Jose Mercury News. Anyway, the key to Bitcoin is not the amassing of the wealth. It is what we do with it. If we can start new businesses, if we can start a new version of, say, Amazon. Somebody says, hey, I got a bunch of Bitcoin. I'm going to do something with this Bitcoin. Or what if you had, say, 4 or 5 people that were part of a Bitcoin collective who could pool their assets and pool their blockchain, and then out of that create something. See, this is where it needs to go, in my estimation. This is the final link, because we need to have new structures that are built inside of our society. I don't care where you are. It could be the United States, South America, it could be Europe. We've got to have these things, Australia, because this is how we grow economically. And from that Saturn and Capricorn perspective, where we become our own CEOs, or we have to, unless we do that, we are now succumbing and consenting to the Saturn Capricornian model that is coming right at us down the railroad tracks, right? And we're just sitting there whistling on the railroad tracks at midnight. And here it comes. This is the missing piece. And when that happens, when these blockchain assets are turned into something workable, into something different, into a structure that creates income and wealth for other people. And I'm not just talking the abstraction of income and wealth, but to actually produce something, to create something. Speaking of which, they're getting ready to launch the driverless trucks. Oh yeah, the driverless trucks. And you know where they're going to launch them? They're going to launch them in Texas, because there's a point between El Paso and places like San Antonio and Austin where there is nothing on the highway. Nothing. So the driverless trucks are starting to, they're starting. They're getting ready. We're talking big trucks. They're getting ready to make their appearance. And here's what's going to happen. The first runs are going to be trucks that will have drivers in them, but they will not be driving the truck. They're basically going to be sitting there in the driver's seat, kind of watching everything, and it's like, they're going to be watching just in case something goes wrong, and then they get an alert, and then they jump in, and then they can take over control of the truck. This is happening. And the rationale behind this. Here's the rationale. The rationale is that 50% of the workforce that are driving the trucks are going to retire within the next 10 to 15 years, which means they're going to have to replace those drivers with, guess what? Automation. Well, not really. I mean, yeah, does it take a certain life and a certain lifestyle and a certain person to be able to drive a truck and get paid for it and get paid pretty well for it, even though it's grueling work? In a lot of ways, my father tried it. He did it for about 2 weeks and he stopped. He got his truck driver's license, and was not for him. He did a run from San Francisco to L.A. and back, and he just said it was brutal. And it was really the truck and the vibration of the road, and having to deal with cars and downshifting and all that stuff. So in some ways, maybe a driverless truck makes some kind of sense, right? But the way that they're positioning it is ridiculous. You can always find people to take jobs. It's just the way it is. And we got all these people coming into this country, correct? And all these new Americans who are supposedly here to take the jobs that other Americans don't take, or participate in jobs that are part of the diminishing workforce. Well, hey, there you go. Here's some jobs. Oh, sorry, we're automating those jobs. Well, then what are they here for? I mean, think about it for just a second, right? For a moment. Oh, what a wonderful world we live in. It's great. I love it. I love it. It's disruptive. It's weird. It's strange. It's chaotic. Causes you to think. And it tests our mettle. And it keeps us on our toes so we don't succumb to cynicism or nihilism. Although every now and then it's kind of fun to go there. But we can't. Because if we do, we may as well just, turn on the car inside the garage and just shut the door. So this is a time of spiritual testing in a pretty significant way. What are you made of? What are you made of? And for some people, it's like, oh my God, I've had this going on and this going on and this going on. How much more can I take? Well, you're here. What's your option? What is your option? Lay down, die, roll over. I know some people's lives are very difficult. Some people's lives have significant physical pain, some emotional pain, some spiritual pain, a combination of all three. This is not a realm for the meek. Sorry. We may have had some insulation, over, say, from 1950 through about I'd say around 1990. We had about 40 years of insulation. And yeah, the 60s were tough, and we had the Vietnam War, but we still had insulation. We had economic insulation because there was more wealth available during the 1960s. There just was. You could buy things a lot cheaper. There was more available wealth. The 70s, there was recreational drug insulation, but it was also kind of the 70s were like the 50s in a lot of ways. It was a kind of a sleepy era. Yeah, we had runaway inflation thanks to Paul Volcker, or runaway interest rates. I mean, the interest rates during the 70s were obscene. Paul Volcker had 19%. The Fed was charging 19% for their money in the 70s. Talk about a material lockdown. What a joke. But even then, we were insulated in a lot of ways. Disco music, poofy hair, platform shoes, bell bottoms. We look back then, which might have been, and so for some people, difficult times, but, that's Ozzy and Harriet land in 1970. Even the 80s were insulated. And then there was a lot more wealth in the 80s because Reagan decided he was going to slash taxes. And for some people, they were able to take advantage of that, start businesses. A lot of people made a lot of money in the 80s. In the 90s, things kind of turn. Things start to turn in the 90s. So we had a good run there from the 50s till about the 80s. 30 years. I'd say 30 years, 32, 33 years, right around there. In the 90s, things get weird. That's when the Clintons come onto the scene. There's no coincidence of the high strange and the weird once the Clintons get into power inside the White House. We have Waco, we have the first 9/11 with the bombing of the World Trade Center. We have all kinds of crazy shit. Monica Lewinsky, all that stuff. I mean, it all just starts to go to hell in the 90s. But here we are now. The insulation is rather thin, isn't it? Which is why opioids are so prevalent and popular, because people just want a break. I mean, life is part of my life is pretty fucking hard for a lot of people. It just is. But what are you going to do? You're going to fold up the tent? Is the circus going to go to another town? Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Some people have gotten out of the country. I've got listeners and clients who have gone to places like Panama, Ecuador, Costa Rica, and they have wonderful lives. They're doing quite well. They've created a little niche for themselves, and that's not out of the question. It can happen. But for the majority of us, we're in a place, and we're going to have to deal with this. So here's the pragmatic approach. Just get good at it. Get good at it and know that the risk reward for being here is pretty tremendous. Like, this is a level up time, to be honest with you. You get through this time, and not like being on the other side of it. Because that in and of itself is even kind of an illusion, right? It's the mirage. It's it's the ascension, or whatever it is. No, it's happening right now. It's all happening now. So you have the opportunity to, like, say, let's get it on, right? And put on your big boy and big girl boots and deal with some of this stuff. It's not easy. It's not always easy, but it has to be done. It has to be done. Because that's what's on our plate. And to be in denial of it is another form of self-immolation in some ways. And we're not alone. We have help. We absolutely do have help. And that help is spiritual help. That's inside of you. You can contact that the best way that you can. But the outcome for this being here in this time is tremendous. It's absolutely tremendous. The amount of growth that can take place, even though we're living in a period where it feels like things are stagnating or moving backwards, that's not true at all. There's a tremendous amount of growth that can take place here. Just hang in there. Stay with it. Do something affirmative every single day. Do things that are difficult. Like, did I want to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning working on that email list? That was actually 3 o'clock in the morning. The answer, quite frankly, is no. But I needed to, right? Because I have, in as much as I love doing this, and I love talking into my microphone and believing there are people listening to this and actually getting something out of it, I think that's great. And I love to, write on my website and share information and knowledge with people on Facebook. But this is also a business, and I've got to have that part of my life also taken care of. And that's the part that I love. I love the exploration. I love the extemporaneous kind of exchange of knowledge. I love working with people one-on-one. That stuff is easy. The hard stuff is, the email list, the being consistent, and all those things. The difficult stuff is getting up in the morning and spending 45 minutes before I do anything else after I take a shower to write a book. That's the stuff that's difficult. And sometimes we have to do, not just sometimes, a lot of times we have to do those things. And it builds character, and it builds all that stuff that I was not really indoctrinated into when I was young. These were not lessons. And the language surrounding those lessons just wasn't a part of my vocabulary. Nobody talked about that to me. My parents did the best they could, but they never talked about building character. They never talked about doing these things that were difficult in order to get to another level in our lives. That conversation just did not occur. So sometimes we come to these things later in life, and it's really theoretically never too late. Remember that. All right, I'm out of here. Hopefully today you've been able to glean something from what I've been able to share with you, whether I made you laugh or chuckle a little bit, gave you something to think about, or something to say, Robert, screw you, I don't agree with this, and then about 3 sentences later say, you know what, maybe I do agree with that. And that's okay. We don't always have to agree. But I hope there is something in here of value and use for you on this day, the 14th of November, so you know what to do. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you've been listening to 15